Alright, in this video I'm going to demonstrate on why you should not buy a fancy RAM for this kind of computer, which it has a motherboard made by the OEM manufacturer. In this case I'm using a HP Tg01 and it uses a HP motherboard which is made by them. And why you should just buy this kind of RAM instead of RAMs that comes with heatsinks like this, right? So the reason is that this kind of computer, the motherboard locks the RAM voltage only up to 1.2 volts only. So this kind of RAMs, they are able to run the rated speed at 1.2 volt, which for both of them they are 8 gigs DDR4 3200 megahertz, and they run them at 1.2 volt, whereby for RAMs like this they require 1.35 volt in order to run the rated speed. So I'm going to demonstrate on what kind of performance that you'll get if you use just this kind of RAM, and if you do combine these two RAMs, what kind of performance that you will get. Alright, currently installed is the PNY XLR8 and the RAM provided by HP, which is the RAM is made by Samsung. It's just the normal green RAM. So as you can see here, I have a 16 gig of memory in total, but the speed is just at 2133 megahertz, although both of this RAM is rated at 3200 megahertz. So the reason is that, as you can see here under CPU Z SPD tab, under slot 1, this is the RAM provided by HP. They are running at 3200 megahertz, and the voltage is rated at 1.2 volts. Alright, so if we look at the second slot, which is the PNY RAM slot, right, so as you can see here, the speed is just 2132 megahertz, and it's because it's just running at 1.2 volt, as opposed to the spec requires it to run at 1.35 volt. So in this case, if you are using a Ryzen CPU, you can probably overclock the memory by using the Ryzen Master software, and you can just tune the memory to run at the specified voltage and requirement, or enable XMP 2.0 if the BIOS supports it. But because we are using the HP prebuilt, where the BIOS, it doesn't have overclocking features, we cannot tune the voltage as well, so we are stuck with the 1.2 volt for the RAM. And in order to tackle this situation, if you are using an Intel, you just have to go and buy this kind of RAM where it's rated at 3200 megahertz and it can run that speed at 1.2 volt. So I'm going to run a Tomb Raider benchmark just to see what's the difference in performance like. Right, so this is the benchmark result for the PNY RAM and the Samsung RAM, which is 16 gig and 2133 megahertz. These are the settings that I run in. Right, so let's check out the performance for the 3200 megahertz and 16 gig RAM. Right, so right now I have the two green RAMs in the system, and both are running at 3200 megahertz and a total of 16 gigs. And as you can see on CPU Z here, this is the first RAM from HP made by Samsung, and this is the second RAM which I just bought. It's made by Micron, and the RAM is actually from one of these kind of pre-built as well. So let's check out Shadow of Tomb Raider benchmark on this setup. Alright, so we are done with the benchmark, and as you can see, the difference is just 2 FPS on the average, and yeah, the settings are all the same. So this is the result for the 3200 MHz 16 gig RAM for both of the green RAM. So maybe if you haven't buy any of these RAM and you would like to upgrade, then I would just suggest to go with the green RAM, as they run at the specified speed at 1.2 volt, which is what this computer will lock the RAM voltage to, 1.2 volt. And you also save some money because those green RAMs, they are a bit cheaper than the RAM that comes with heat sinks like this. Right, so